Hi, everybody. How are we doing today? It is Wednesday. Let's see, what is the date today? September 7th, 2022. It's a few days away from my son's birthday. Bitcoin is up in the last hour, down in the last week. We're basically moving sideways with a little bit of downward motion recently. We're at $19,297. And that's kind of the point of my thumbnail and title today. Oh no, Bitcoin's gone down. You know what? Calm down. Stop looking at the price. If you're going to buy Bitcoin, sit on it for years in self-custody. Don't worry about flipping this. That's not what the game's about. You're not going to win that game. If you want to play that game, Bitcoin's not even the asset you should be playing with. Find something more volatile and crazy. If you want to play craps, if you want to gamble, there's different things you can gamble on. Because I'll tell you what, Bitcoin is not a gamble. It's a surefire bet. Over time, it will go up. Its value will increase because of some very simple things. And it's really easy to overthink this. It's old. It's going to be outdone. It's going to be outdated. Nah, don't overthink this. It's the biggest name. It's the widest spread network. It's the most battle-tested cryptocurrency out there. And it's proof of work, which can't be faked. You can't, what's the term I'm looking for? Counterfeit. You can't counterfeit electricity. That's why proof of work is so valuable, and I am amazed that so many people are so eager to have Ethereum transition to proof of stake. What are you doing, guys? You just try and show the world that you're really kind to Mother Earth by using less energy? Go live in a hut in the woods. You'll use less energy. I don't see people doing that. Look, here's the price. We're doing fine. Calm down, HODL, things will be okay. Let's look at some headlines, some chatter on Twitter. Bloomberg Crypto is talking about El Salvador. They're saying El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele took the stage last year to fireworks, announcing to a crowd of crypto enthusiasts at a beachside confab? That's not a word I've ever used before. That Bitcoin would revolutionize his country. A year later, the fireworks are few and far. Oh no, 12 months on, 18 months on? I believe he announced this in April 2021, so it's not just a year, it's about 18 months. But still, this is a silly thing to be saying about an investment that a country made with their sovereign wealth. Do you measure that in months? We're 18 months on. Sorry, the whole global economy is in some pretty unstable waters right now, unstable times. You're going to pick this one country that made one weird bet and say that, oh no, it didn't work out. We're several months on. Clearly, it hasn't panned out the way they wanted it to. Guys, every country and every investment are struggling right now. Not sure you've noticed. Check the headlines. You're a news publication. Maybe check some of your other headlines. This is absurd. This is really an absurd take, and they're not the first one to make this take. This almost exact same article came out a few months ago, and I'm kind of amazed that they're still repeating the message there. From documenting Bitcoin with just the clothes on their backs, a life savings on a flash drive. Ukrainian refugee flees to Poland with $2,000 in Bitcoin on a USB drive. Michael Saylor talks about this all the time. It's one of the qualities of Bitcoin that everybody knows, but I don't think we really appreciate enough how important this is. You can store any amount of wealth in your brain. You remember a seed phrase, and it's yours, and nobody can get it out of your head if you don't want to give it to them. They're going to threaten your life, but if they kill you, they're not going to get any of it. Sorry, you can at least negotiate. From Bitcoin Meme Hub. I don't know about you guys, but I feel nothing. I feel the same way. Anybody who's been in this for a while probably feels the same way. Yeah, it's down. I actually have seen my balance measured in Bitcoin go up recently because I still hold a portion in Giddy, which has moved sideways compared to Bitcoin's slightly down. So I'm going to be exiting that Giddy position very soon. And I'm going to be net positive in Bitcoin. And I'm probably not going to move back out of that position anymore. I'm just going to dollar cost average on a very regular basis, maybe push some cash aside so that I can buy the dip when I think there is one, but probably not even that. Let's just put this on autopilot and make it simple. That is a can't lose strategy. Over enough time, you can't lose. Self-custody, dollar cost average. Just do it, my friends. From Adam Wright, this is an interesting one, spoke to a landfill today that is flaring 760 cubic feet per minute of landfill gas. They had an request for proposals open for a year, and no one submitted a proposal. They spoke with a consultant who advised it would not be viable for beneficial use. Let's just say we had a productive conversation. Do you understand what he's talking about here? Flared gas, flaring 760 cubic feet per minute of landfill gas. Guys, you can drop a generator right on top of that with a Bitcoin miner attached, and it doesn't need to be attached to anything but like a Wi-Fi hub, right? You just need a modest connection to the internet and a local Bitcoin miner that runs on the power being created on premises, and you have a profitable operation. You have cash flow from that. This should be done everywhere. And this kind of brings to a point, quick aside, if you know what these are, there's a 99% chance you own Bitcoin. What are these? Do you know? You probably do. I'll say it for anyone who doesn't happen to know. These are Yap stones used on the island of Yap. These were currency for the Yap people. They're too big to move around, but people knew where they were and knew who owned them. Anybody who's dug deep down the rabbit hole of what is money has probably come across this very unique historical example of money. And who does that? Bitcoiners do that. Others don't. The Hex people don't. The chain link people probably don't. Even the Ethereum people don't. But if you've seriously dug deep on the question of what is money, you're probably a Bitcoiner. And you probably know about Yap stones at that. Okay. This person was saying that, they spoke to a landfill that was flaring 760 cubic feet per minute of landfill gas. This person is saying, Logan Bollinger at the Y of Phi, Bitcoin is the most important issue for both millennials and Gen Zs. Most of them don't know it yet. Here's why. I'll just read it. In Deloitte's 2022 Gen Z and Millennial survey, they found that the top two concerns for both generations were cost of living and climate change. 75% of respondents reported a belief that the value is, quote, at a tipping point in response to climate change, but less than half are optimistic that efforts to protect the planet will be successful. The report also revealed that about half of millennials and Gen Zs live paycheck to paycheck, and around 3/4 of Gen Zs, 72%, and millennials, 77%, agree that the gap between the richest and the poorest people in their country is widening. Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining is uniquely positioned to address both wealth inequality and cost of living and climate change. Bitcoin mining is singularly situated to fight climate change by reducing methane emissions from landfills and oil gas fields. As we just saw, this person is talking about doing exactly that with a landfill that couldn't find anyone else to use this free energy. No other method was forthcoming. None were economically viable. A consultant told them that it wasn't going to work out. They put out a request for proposals and received 0 proposals. All they needed to do was talk to a Bitcoiner, because Bitcoiners know that you can reduce methane emissions from landfills and oil gas fields by plopping down a generator that can burn flared gas and run a Bitcoin miner. Number 2, smoothing out mismatches of supply and demand in energy grids, thereby facilitating incentivizing increased renewables. Man, these are so important and they are so poorly understood. Maybe I need to just shift my whole career to focus on those. I think those are incredible opportunities right now that most people are not aware of, are not taking advantage of. I have no experience in those fields, but hey, throw yourself in with some enthusiasm and a rising tide, good things happen. Moving on, Bitcoin is singularly situated to fight wealth inequality by combating the biggest driver of such, the endless manipulation of money and the continuous expansion of the money supply, which pushes wage-earning savers and rewards wealth asset holders. Now, I'm going to interject. I don't 100% agree with this, at least not on its face, because yes, Bitcoin will end the endless manipulation of money and the continuous expansion of the money supply. Yes, that is what it will do, because we all know Bitcoin's supply. It can be known down to the exact amount, and we know the issuance rate. We know exactly when new Bitcoin will be issued, and we know that for over the next 100 years. The issue I take with this take is that they're saying that it will fight wealth inequality. My guy, let's go down the road and assume that Bitcoin achieves hyper-Bitcoinization. Let's assume that this creates a sound money gravity well that sucks all money into it. What you're going to do is make things a lot worse before they're better. You're going to make the likes of Michael Saylor unimaginably wealthy, right? He's already a multi-billionaire. He's a very wealthy man. In the scenario of hyper-Bitcoinization, he would be monetarily like an untouchable demigod. He would own an unimaginable portion of the global wealth if hyper-Bitcoinization happens. Bitcoin sucks all money into it. So my pushback is simply that Bitcoin in the near term could make things a lot worse before it makes things better. I don't see Bitcoin as a means of leveling the playing field in the sense of same outcomes, right? Wealth inequality is about different outcomes. It's also about different access, but it's definitely about different outcomes. You have multi-billionaires who can do anything, and you have people barely scraping by, and the disparity is huge. Bitcoin will not solve that, certainly not overnight, certainly not in a few years even. That what you're talking about is potentially generations of people. Sorry. All right, moving on. From Kevin Rook, who is a huge champion of the Lightning Network, 4,700 plus BTC on Lightning Network. If digital gold is still the mental model you're using to reason about Bitcoin adoption, you're falling behind. What does he mean? He means that the digital gold narrative is a narrative that was adopted when digital currency, which is what Bitcoin was originally meant to be, right? Peer-to-peer cash, as cited in the Bitcoin white paper. But that didn't really work out. There were bottlenecks, there were hangups, there were problems with the peer-to-peer cash aspect of Bitcoin, which is part of the reason that you have so many other cryptocurrencies. But the narrative shifted around Bitcoin. In the last few years, people have been talking about it as digital gold. It's not peer-to-peer cash, it's personal savings. It's a way to preserve your purchasing power over long durations of time, which is absolutely true. I'm not going to argue against that. What Kevin is saying that the currency narrative, the currency use case is taking off. It's having a resurgence. Thanks to the Lightning Network, the ability to move sums of money denominated in Bitcoin from person A to person B, super fast, super cheap, with no friction, that is rising dramatically. Look at that. Every time we look at this chart, Lightning Network public capacity, every time we look at it, it is headed high and to the right. This is a line that only goes one direction. And ultimately, that line is going to have price following along. As utility increases, so will its value. From Silly Roundabout Goomba at WhyBitcoinJ, the Lightning Network will fail just like the Bitcoin Network did. Oh, tongue firmly in cheek. The Bitcoin Network did not fail, and neither will the Lightning Network. Shifting topics, this is from Derek Porter, a personal acquaintance, somebody that I like and admire. He points out that in Switzerland, they are now jailing anyone who heats the room above 19 degrees Celsius for up to 3 years if the country is forced to ration gas due to the Ukraine war. We're seeing a lot more headlines like this, where people are being jailed for their personal behavior that is otherwise totally normal behavior is now being criminalized. As I said in yesterday's live stream, the state only knows how to do one thing in the face of frustration. It clamps down harder. We're going to see governments doing that all over the world. Even as they're losing grip, even as power is slipping through their fingers, they're just going to squeeze tighter. We need networks of freedom like Bitcoin, like Lightning. We need these networks to work. We need them not just because they're useful, but because they're going to be essential when the other systems we have descend into tyranny. We see that happening all the time. Let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. Now, I've heard some people argue that artificial intelligence is not as cool as it is touted to be, as it superficially appears to be, because it is a centralized technology. Bitcoin is decentralized by its very fundamental nature. It is grassroots. It is ground up. AI, by and large, is not. It is the opposite. It is created by centralized organizations with a great deal of financing and computational power. However, I don't think that's going to be fundamentally the case because I'll get into it. First of all, AI, Adobe Illustrator, is being disrupted by AI, artificial intelligence. This is somebody, Guilio, disruption can't come soon enough, talking about how Adobe Illustrator is just getting out of control with their price option. You're going to be charged an early cancellation fee of 100 Great Britain pounds. Really, just ending my service is going to cost me 100 Great Britain pounds. Where on the other hand, this person, Give George, what a name, just released a collab notebook that combines Crayon, Craiyon, which we've used on this live stream before, plus Stable Diffusion to get the best of both worlds. And then he shares the GitHub repo. Here's the thing, guys. Crayon is free to use to anybody. In fact, you can download the AI and use it on your local machine. Same with Stable Diffusion. DALL-E from OpenAI was not that way. It was not open source. You couldn't look under the hood. You couldn't tweak things. Stable Diffusion is, and has totally changed the narrative around AI. In fact, I'm in the process right now of downloading a local instance of Stable Diffusion so I can play with it, tweak the variables, and maybe create some really powerful images with it. Look at this. This top image of Walter White, a la Breaking Bad, that's Crayon. It's free to use, but it's very rough. You know, nobody's going to look at that and think that a real artist or a real human put that together. However, that bottom image, you can feed Stable Diffusion rough images and it will turn them into very fine, beautiful, amazing images. Here is an example. This paper, so this YouTube channel is called 2 Minute Papers. This is a fascinating YouTube channel. 2 Minute Papers. They go into DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and look at this. Here's a rough image, and then you plug it into Stable Diffusion, and it gives you something like that. You can do that on your local machine. You can download an instance of Stable Diffusion. You can tweak the variables. You can fine-tune it a million different ways, and you can do incredible things. I'm doing that right now so that I can start experimenting with this, but I think this is powerful. I haven't talked about this much publicly, I wrote a children's book in the midst of the 2020 pandemic, and I like it. I'm proud of it. I haven't published it. It just exists on my own machine, but I want to illustrate it and release it. So I've been looking for an artist, and I could hire somebody, and I maybe still will do that. But one other thing that I'm considering is this. I don't have to be an artist to do this. I have to find art or ideas or framing that I like and feed it into the machine. And the machine can give me 100 iterations. That might be a powerful way to do something like illustrating a book. I'm looking at doing it myself. We'll see. Here are other things. It can do all kinds of wild stuff. Can you imagine, and apologies, this gets a bit macabre, but we're just continually zooming in on this image and it continues to morph into something different and weird. It's not hard to see how this is related to what was it, like DeepMind images that came out a few years ago? You remember there was an AI that would take images and it would like warp them into a total acid trip where like everything in the image looked kind of like a dog face, where you could tweak them and they would look like any number of things. Similar technology. You can see how it's related. Interestingly, you can do the opposite. Instead of continually zooming in and getting a morphed image, you can zoom out. You can widen the borders of an image and it will fill in the gap with what the AI thinks might be there. And this is not just still images. This is video. So imagine the day not far hence where you can punch in the text of a story that you write. Maybe you get some help from AI to write the story, right? You give it a little bit of a prompt, it fleshes out a more thorough story. You then take that text and you put it into an image generator. You then take those images and put them into a video generator. We are not far away from when video is going to be able from when AI is going to be able to make things that rival genuine creative studios. Disney is going to get disrupted. Pixar is going to get disrupted. Studio Ghibli is going to get disrupted. Believe it or not, I really think that's where we're headed. All of the pieces are already there in their nascent form. They're only going to get better. They're only going to get faster. They're only going to get more accessible. And then you link them together. Right now, they're kind of siloed, they're kind of separate. But a modestly capable technician, hopefully somebody like myself, could link these together right now and do interesting things. In fact, this has kind of already been done. This is a filmmaker named Karen X. Chang. I met Karen a few years ago at Vid Summit. This was a conference in LA for YouTubers. Don't know if you know this, I've worked in YouTube in the past on a quite successful channel over a decade ago. Karen is a brilliant filmmaker. She's an experimental filmmaker who makes awesome stuff. And what she did is she used AI to make this video of her dress dynamically changing. She used a few different pieces of software to do this, but it was more or less the AI doing it. She just had to manually link them together. Okay, put the images into this, add some text, generate these images, take those images, plug them into this AI that's going to animate those, and then make sure that they are fluidly together. She's brilliant. If you're interested in experimental video, which I absolutely am, I started a film festival a number of years ago. It only ran for a couple of years, but it was fun while it lasted. That was more or less an experimental film festival. It was all mobile. It's called the Pocket Film Fest. We only did films that were shot, in many cases edited, on a mobile phone. 2014 and 2015 is when we did that. That was still a novel concept. It is no longer as novel as it once was. But if you're interested in experimental film, Karen X. Cheng is definitely worth checking out. She's got lots of cool stuff. Definitely go take a look at her. And speaking of central versus open, something like DALL-E from OpenAI was locked down, and they put all kinds of constraints on it so that it remained safe. Stable diffusion is not that. You can download it, run it locally, do whatever you want. Things are going to get crazy. They already are, but honestly, I would rather live in a volatile, crazy world of freedom than a safe world of barriers and fences and lockdowns. All right, friends, that's what I've got today. I got to run. Let me know down in the comments what you would like to talk about in the future. I think I'm going to broaden the horizons of this channel. As I said yesterday, as I've said in the last couple live streams, my philosophy on cryptocurrency is kind of converging on Bitcoin. I really think that's where it's at. So my strategy is simply going to be buy and hold Bitcoin in private custody. I can continue to talk about that. I will continue to talk about that. There are always going to be things to talk about in that domain. But the strategy itself, pretty straightforward. So I may expand this channel to talk about technology more broadly, things like AI or experimental filmmaking, etc. I've got plenty of ideas in that domain. In fact, that's where most of my career has been for the past dozen or so years. So anticipate that. Look for that. More things coming. Let me know if there's a technology you would like to explore down in the comments. Go ahead and click that like button if you enjoyed this at all. Subscribe if you are new to this channel. Click the bell icon if you would like to know when new videos come out. Let your friends know, share it, comment, call your family and tell them you love them. Go outside, get some sunshine, touch some grass, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.